Okay,
You,
good,
you-
good morning, everyone. We'll first introduce ourselves. Gemma asked us to give this session, so it's almost a learning experience for Herman and I, as well as yourselves. I'm Mike Elliott. I'm one of the directors of IX Limited, which is a research consultancy, and also professor at the University of Hull. As you'll see, Herman and I are involved and have been involved many years in European projects, but also in IX, we also do research projects for local government, for industries, for national governments in the UK and elsewhere, and for other groups worldwide. So we'll take you through these and then try and give you some some pointers, and then we'll make sure we leave enough time at the end for any comments. I mean, I guess if you can put any questions in the chat anyway, but we'll come back to you. So there. So okay, Herman.
yeah, I'm a colleague of Mike, but then at the other side of the North Sea in the Netherlands. I'm the chair of the board for the HuFoSS Foundation. Before we started the foundation, I've been active a long time in the Netherlands Institute for Sea Research, the Oceanographic Institute of the Netherlands, and the Netherlands Institute of Ecology. So my topics are the marine biodiversity and marine ecophysiology of benthic animals. But mainly I've been active as coordinator of many projects, and there's already 30 years active in all kinds of international European projects. At the same time, next to being active in the Netherlands, I'm also active as a professor at the University of Gdansk in Poland. So in this way, I also try to be as international as possible to have all kinds of views. And all these kind of different views that we collect, Mike and I, help us to make nice new proposals for very interesting projects. And of course, we want to help you to make those nice projects yourselves also. So that's what we are going to do. Mike.
That's good. Okay, thanks, Herman. Yes, so as Herman says, and as you'll see at those logos at the bottom of the screen there, we're involved in quite a few projects now. Horizon Europe, we've been doing them for many years, and also we're just part of consortia that have just submitted some over the last 2 weeks or so. It's quite interesting. One of the things that you'll notice in this is that in trying to create a good proposal, you end up working with people that you like and people that you want to work with, and that also cuts down the problems. So these are the things we're going to talk about. We'll mainly talk about applying for big grants like Horizon Europe, but many of the things we'll talk about go for other grants as well. Let's say whether it's for industries or governments, and then if you want more information, we can discuss this at the end of it. So we'll talk about the types of grants, the overview, the proposal, how the partnerships work, the budgets, and so on. Try and cover all of these, and that's so we'll get through those. And the starting point often is what you see there, that front page of a Horizon Europe call. And I think some of you, like Gemma and some of this, are paid or funded out of these sorts of projects. So firstly, the types of grants, there's two main types of grants. One is called speculative grants, and they're the ones where you come up with the idea and then you try and get it funded. You've read something or you've done your, a research project or PhD or master's. You come up with a good idea or your supervisor comes up with a good idea, and then you look to see who will fund it. And there are a lot of those, mostly within own countries rather than others. The other sort that we'll mainly talk about are the responsive grants. That is, you are responding to ones. They're usually very well defined. They tell you exactly what they want to do. They're less general. They're on a particular theme, And so you have to respond to that. And as we'll emphasize, if you start writing something that is not in the call, then you're not going to get very far with it. The bit at the bottom of the screen there are different types of these grants, especially in the EU. We have innovation actions and we have research and innovation, and these all have different funding mechanisms. There is also, and some of you might be involved in it, Interreg funds. These are the more regional ones. Some of these grants require you to put in match funding. So a research and innovation, you get 100%, but an innovation action, if you're a research company like IX, then you get only 70%. So you have to put in match funding. Whereas a foundation, a charitable foundation like HuFoSS that Herman is with, then they would get all of it there. So have you got any comments on that slide, Herman?
Well, in fact, this is quite okay. I would add that, of course, we are talking now about European funds, but also you get many national funds, and you have to find, say, your supervisor to ask him and to indicate what are the best means and the programs to act in if you want to get these similar types of grants. But the principles that we will discuss now, as we know explaining through the EU grants, they hold also for national grants.
Yep, that's right. I say for a while I had an adjunct position in Australia, and one of the conditions of the adjunct position is that I had to try and help them get a large Australian grant, and it's the same ideas that we've got here, but we'll go through that there. So this is the starting point. This is what it looks like when the call comes out. You see there, and this is just the page for one of the ones that's just closed now. This shows the basics about the call, the what the contribution will be, what the indicative budgets will be, the conditions, and so on. Now, the draft for this will usually come out up to a year in advance, and then eventually the call will be published properly, and then it will give you a deadline for applying to it. So you have to be in you have to sort of have your ear to the ground for when the drafts will be circulated. Now, normally these come out from what is called national contact points. I'm always amazed because they come out, the drafts come out, and it has on it confidential, but within a millisecond of it being published, it's spread all around Europe. So I don't know what's confidential about these things. And so eventually when the call comes out, it gives a deadline, probably 3 to 4 months after the call. So the projects that were submitted last week and this week, their call came out in May. But usually, as soon as the drafts come out, then people start creating their consortia. And then the final bit there is that if you can get involved with a call before it gets put onto the draft. There's one now that we're discussing that will be submitted next year where we help to write the call. So the text you see there, we were helping to write it. This was for a different call here. And that way you help to write the call, and either you or some people you're working with lobby your national contact points and get them to help your ideas going to the call. Herman?
Yeah, this is just one of the examples that you can see. So do not read it all, of course, because normally you will get something like 200 different topics if it's in biology, but also still another 200 topics when it is about the sociology. Again, 200 topics in economy or industry. So there are many. So orientate firstly yourself on what topics you would like to propose something, and when you are, say, studying, or when you do your PhD, or starting your career. Just make firstly an idea about where you would like to submit a proposal. This is just one, normally described following 2 pages in such a list of proposals, which are just hundreds of pages long. So let you help firstly by some experienced colleagues. As Mike said, they have contact points, or they have contacts to the contact points in whatever country you live, and they may help you to select what would fit most to you. But it is an enormous load of calls there will be every year again. So if you really are eager to further your career and to do some international work, then let you help by your experienced colleagues to select the topics that fit most to you.
Yeah, for example, the calls that are out at the moment, one's on climate change, there are ones on biodiversity, there's one is called Farm to Fork, which interestingly also included aquaculture. And oh, sorry, I don't know why that's gone there.
Or to farm. Yeah.
Just a minute. Where's it? Hold on. I have to stop sharing.
Still see you, Mike.
Can you see my PowerPoint?
I see your PowerPoint and I see your cursors even moving up and down.
Ah, I seem to have lost it. Hang on. Ah, I must have moved. I saw the IUCN page. Okay. Right. This is the example of a call. And I think you, Herman, wrote this by taking the call summary and then try to pull out the main points. Yes, if you just want to say how you did it with this.
Yeah. So what you get is, again, those 2 pages, and do not read this page. This just to give you some additional information that they ask you firstly. They firstly give you some information and then to show within which framework you have to stay. For example, and that's what I put on top of it. So they expect a lot from you. They want all expertise from you and they want to know all ins and outs, maybe even your career at the end. So, but they expect a lot from you, but you can get also a lot. If you look at one of the first lines, you can get 15 million euro available for the ID that you have. So if you have a nice project, you can get it. There are millions to wait for you. So, but then you have to follow, of course, the further lines that are there. And that's the type of action. For example, an innovation action, you have to read clearly what type of action it is. In this one, you should show something of innovation. Then what is the consortium has to consist of? And you really have to follow exactly those lines, which means in the one who was just passed by the last summer, you have to find colleagues in the Atlantic and Arctic, and in the Baltic and the North Sea, and in the Danube and the Black Sea, and in the Mediterranean. So fit within those IDs. That means that often you need to have a network, as maybe you are sitting now here together you could make such a network and see if you can cover all those territories. And in each basin, you have to find at least 2 regions. There are 4 major basins then.
Yep.
And then you have to read the expected outcomes. And that you have to connect in this way, not only from the research side, many of you will be now from the research side, but you have really to find and to contact with regional authorities also nowadays. It is nowadays very important not to stay just in the comfort zone of research, but also to move towards the regional authorities, local authorities, or to connect with, say, the management of territories. So that's what you have to take care of.
Yeah.
Then you have to invent all kinds of tools and so on. So in this way, just follow it. And this is just an example on how it can be. And this is only an excerpt, a summary of 2 pages of all kinds of conditions that you have to follow. So be aware, there's quite some work, but you can get a lot out it.
So what Herman was doing with this is going through the original call, which he say, no, it may be 2 pages. I think there's some out 4 or 5 pages, pulling out the keywords and then you start discussing. Sorry, yes, Nan.
Sorry to interrupt, Herman. I have a question. You said here regional authorities. What do you mean by regional authorities? Who are they? Like, are they working for the government authorities or?
Yeah, that's a clear question. Good, because that is indeed very important nowadays to take care exactly about such little issues as it is there. Written regional authorities, what are they? How are they? How to connect to them? So coincidentally, we have done other projects in which we have been connecting to, for example, the Lord Mayor of a city, the Lord Mayor of a town hall. So we connect to those colleagues who are sitting there in the town hall. It can also be someone from the ministry, and often that is someone who is already at a research site in the Ministry of Agriculture, the Ministry of the Environment, something like that. And then if you have coincidentally one of your colleagues or your leader does have such a connection, you have to invite them to participate in your project. So it can be actually the Lord Mayor, or it can be a colleague who's working in the ministry.
Yeah, we'll talk in a minute, Nan, about how you build the partnership. One of the other points in here, as Herman said, I mean, at the top it says 15 million for one project. Sometimes it will tell you that they are willing to fund 2, or in rare circumstances, 3 projects. So at least you then know sort of what sort of consortia you've got. So this is something that I mean, you're the first people to have ever seen this slide. We just hope that we've got enough in it, but we'll see. So and we're going to illustrate each of the or many of these parts there and that. So we get the call text, we highlight the main points as you've seen. You have to be clear about the main aim. You have to, what's it they're really after? Now, many of you if you've been doing a PhD or you're still doing a PhD, then one of the things you have to be clear about is, what is your aim? That is the big idea. What is your objectives? How do I reach the main aim? And then, have I got any testable questions, any hypotheses that I could do? So you've done all that. Defining the method and the approach, and now you start creating a core team, creating a partnership, especially a core team. And we'll come back to this because of the way Herman and I found this really useful. What you then need to do is say, we're not doing this just for researchers. We're very often, as you've just seen, the call is saying you are producing something for users and stakeholders. What we then need is, how are we going to do the project? We'll do it a standard way, split it into work packages and tasks, define who's leading those. We'll talk about a Gantt chart and a PERT diagram. Then we'll talk about the milestones, which are the critical points in it, and the deliverables, the main outputs, and these are the terms that you'll end up using. Then you try and create the budget according to person months, sort of how long are we needing for each task and for each work package, and the budget. As you've seen, the overall budget's been given. What you now have to do is start deciding how to split that. Then you need to say, what will we do with this? What impact will we create from it? And who is that going to be useful for? Then you have to tell people, yeah, but there are risks in what we're doing. How will we overcome them? What we're then going to be doing is saying the project will create outputs, and hopefully it will lead to outcomes. The outputs are usually the tangible things that's created. The outcomes is how you use that. The aim is to try and get outcomes before the end of the project, but as you know, in many cases, the outcomes will come later. And then what you're needing is, in order to do this, you're needing to generate the structure of the project with the steering committee, the advisory board, a practitioner advisory board, and so on. And hopefully after you've done all this, you can complete and submit the proposal. And remember that the proposal for these projects, we're talking about some of these European projects, they're only 45 pages long. There's a bigger document that goes with it that describes all the background to all the partners, but the main description of the project is only 45 pages, and that's what the problems people have. So, Herman?
Yeah, so just, of course, these are many steps, too much to remember, but just look at the colors, and this indicates a little bit that, say, in blue, that are those issues that have to be there in the research part of the scientific part of the proposal. But as you can see, it is not just only writing a scientific proposal. You have already very soon to connect to a lot of partners, and we will all explain this in the next steps, in the next slides, coming slides. But it shows you have not to be only scientists, you also have to be a networker together with a lot of other colleagues. And you have to be a composer to make sometimes nice diagrams and charts. And at the same time, you have to be also a financial person, since you have to think about how to divide the budget. So just look at the colors, and that makes also that it is not only about scientific hypotheses and that kind of stuff, but it is also about finances, it's about networking, it is about composing a nice structure and outline of a proposal. And then at the end, you can complete and submit a proposal. So it is a mix of all, and that's what I would like to give. So
that's right. So when you're trying to structure the proposal, you have to be clear what they want. It's not what you want, it's what they want, which is it. So introduce your idea. And if you remember, when any reviewer, because this will be reviewed, when any reviewer reads a proposal or a paper, usually what happens is in the first maybe few lines or first one or two paragraphs, they get a good idea about it. They work out whether it seems to be a worthwhile project, and then what they do is they read the rest of it to reinforce their ideas. So introduce your ideas, the aims, the objectives, the methods, the outputs. Then you start sharing the ideas with the right partners, or the way I think Herman and I work is that some of this we develop in a small group, working together, we brainstorm it and get this underway, sort of thing. Then we can go through the work packages, and we'll talk about that, and the diagrams as well. That bit about beware of a wish list approach, because what happens is once you start getting a lot of people together, they all put in what they want to do. They all want their part of, let's call it their hobby science. They always put that in first, sort of thing there. We work on the basis, we split the nice to know versus need to know. All of us, there's lots of things that will be nice to know, but what do you need to know to answer the questions? And then in the proposal, you're going to have all of these things there, and we're going to illustrate some of those there. So trying to say what's in it, and are we fulfilling all of those things? And as Herman says, so you see these little boxes saying how it relates to the flow chart. Herman?
This is just the way to act. Be first crisp and concise about what you want to do, and also remember it for yourself. Oh, this is a brilliant idea, but also know that you have to find the right partners, and you have to share your idea to develop it further into more detail. So that is the main message, because there are many chapters to be filled in for a proper proposal. And as Mike said, take care, it has to be crisp and concise, since it's only 45 pages in which you have to show the full consortium that you're going to work with, and the full proposal.
I mean, normally what you have to do, and it's the same when you write a paper, you have to put yourself in the position of the reviewer. What will the reviewer want to know in all this? And then we create a PERT diagram. This is one of Herman's, so I'll let him take you through this.
Yes, this is one of my hobbies, to compose, at least already from the beginning, a kind of idea. What do we want to do, and what kind of work packages should there be in it. And this is one of our proposals. Together with Mike, we have composed this ROER proposal and has been submitted just a couple of days ago. And what we would like to do is to restore our oceans and waters in Europe. What you have to think about, that's what Mike also already indicates, think about who needs our research, who wants to have UID, and that are the stakeholders. The stakeholders, those who are interested in UIDs. So there is an important work package nowadays on stakeholder engagement, and let them co-design further the proposal. So you do not directly need them to have them in your proposal, but at least you have to think about for whom is this of interest, for what kind of governance, for what kind of managers your research will be of interest. So therefore make it an important, say, work package. The work package to bring stakeholders together. So your colleagues have all to help at all different locations to bring stakeholders together. Yeah. But of course you need to have a kind of research plan, for which you have to make in the beginning to review everything. So we review all the guidelines, the different approaches and tools for that part of science that you want to develop. That is work package 3, review and make guidelines. Then you have to apply and test those guidelines. Again, a work package. Bring everybody together who can test the guidelines in case study areas or demonstration sites, whatever you may call them. But you have to test it. Does it work? Do your IDs work in the different locations in Europe? And as you could see in the beginning, you have to test them in the north, in the south, in the east of the west of Europe. Then further work packages, of course, to bring everything together again, to synthesize all those aspects. Again, the work package. And then you have to assemble it all in a kind of nice new guideline, which we call here a blueprint for restoration and protection. Double T in protection, wrong. So at least it can be done with some mistakes also. But you have to bring everything together in a blueprint. And then, of course, you have to take care that everybody will read it, will get it, will work with it. So you have to do outreach, dissemination on how to exploit your results. And you have to take care that all the data are cured, that they are stored somewhere, that you have all the background data still. So these are the major aspects that you have to work on. For each of those tasks, you have some persons to help you in this kind of steps. So it is a stepwise approach, the work packages. And within you can see small packages, and they are called tasks. For example, if you want to review and see what the guidelines are in work package 3, then there are 3 tasks. You review everything on protection and restoration practices. Then there is a task to look what are governors doing and maybe the managers doing. And there is a task on what to do on indicators. Are the smart indicators ready? So that are different tasks within, say, composing the basis for your research already. Yeah. Each task will need a leader. So in this way, you can see also that you need a lot of leaders, but we go a bit later to how to compose the work packages in time also, and also what are the basic ideas about partners. That's what we will show you also. But this is the basic structure. Mike, to add?
No, yeah, that's everything. And then also, Herman, this is probably one of the central bits of how we organize things, and there are various ways of drawing a Gantt diagram. Now, before, it just shows that we're never too old to learn things. I always thought Gantt stood for something to do with timetable, but it was only when I did this that I found that it was named after Henry Gantt. Hence it's a Gantt chart, but with little letters, something. So this is one of Herman's again, which shows a huge amount of information. So, Herman?
Yeah, this is also one of our hobbies, of course. As you can see, you have to make some kind of nice overviews. And it can be in the beginning a bit difficult, but to the left side, you can see back again the same work packages and their tasks. So you have to make a nice overview in this column What is the work package? What are the tasks that we are going to perform? Then to the right side, you see how the time is evolving. And you may have wondered maybe already, how long does a project normally last? Now, that is often not written down. You can let it last for 3 years, 4 years, or 5 years. Here you see an example of 4 years, and we have scheduled all the different work packages and tasks over the 4 years period. In this 4 years period, on the top, there's the management. That's the first work package. They have to take care that everything runs carefully. So that has to last all the time. Then you come to the stakeholder engagement, those who have to, for whom you are doing it, you have to consult them. That's also given in the time, will last also 4 years. Then we come to work package 3. That takes 3 years. Moving from the left to the right, you can see that develops. That makes the basis, all the first ideas about guidelines and approaches. You will pass it to the next work package, which is a bit later or almost simultaneously, that you see a lot of tests to be done in the field. That is mainly in the second and the third year. Then you do all those tests. Then you have to synthesize all those ideas. So you have to pass your information further towards the third year, where all the synthesis takes place. And then you come to composing on basis of the synthesis a blueprint, which is done at the end of the third year and into the fourth year. And of course, all the time you have to take care about your outreach and the dissemination of what you are doing. You have to keep them motivated, everybody. So there's an outreach and dissemination work package again, lasting all 4 years. And in this way, you can read such a Gantt chart. So it is in fact a proper system and diagram to help you to link which tasks, when, in what period, how they have to connect to each other. And in this way, you can see it.
Yeah. So as you see on here, it gives when a milestone. So we mentioned before these notable points in the process, and it tells you when deliverables are due because they're the outputs. And what the funder does is, as the project goes on, they are ticking off. Did you do the Did you pass the milestones? And have you got evidence? Did you create the deliverables, and have you got evidence of those? And they're the ones that are checked. Now, some people have said that a Gantt chart like this is too complicated, but what I think we've found is, and we've used this style in several projects, is the whole thing gives you a blueprint for how to do the project. If it works okay, it should tell you people what they're doing. Once they know, I'm part of this work package and I'm part of this task, I know that the task runs in this way and I know what it will come out with. So it's a really powerful tool. Say some people say, oh no, it's too complicated, you'll never understand it. But what we're wanting to do is use this as a way through this and there. Now, we've said that what we should do, especially in these types of projects, is they should be based on good science. And good science says we've got the aims for what we want to do. We've got the objectives, that is the bullet points, how do we reach the aim? And then also, are we going to do good science by coming up with hypotheses or testable questions? So at the end of the project, we know that we've reached those. So this is really just to say your ideas from it for what you'll do, they come from your own experience, they come from you reading the literature, publications, the people you work with, and so on. So that's just to explain that. And in the same way, remember to be kind to the reviewer. They will have these 45 pages, but if you can put in some good illustrations that summarize these, so that, for example, the one on the left there, that's a simplified version of something we published a long time ago. On the right-hand side, that gives more detail, but it does show the way the whole project will be based, sort of thing. So being kind to the reviewer by having these in it there. Okay, so the next part is then building your partnership. What we've done several times now is we've had a good core team of 5 or 6 people in order to start drafting the main ideas. Now, Herman and I have done this several times now. You have a core team drafting the main ideas, getting the call, and so on. The second bullet point there: ensure you've got like-minded people working together. As you hopefully in this one, the benefits of the ECR group, you get to know who it is you like to work with, who are thinking the same way as you are, who are good and are reliable. You know, they've got good reputations and they want to work together. You then need to say who's got the right techniques and outlook, because you know you won't have them all yourself. So who do we bring in order to bring the techniques? As it says there, the partnership grows organically. That is, you bring in a few people and they say, oh, well, we also need this technique. What about such and such coming in? And that's how it grows. But I say, beware of it snowballing. If you start off with 5 partners, each of them brings in another 2 partners. So we're now up to 15. Each of those wants to bring in someone else. And before you know it, you've got so many partners, but there. So you need enough to carry out the work, but not too many there. Bringing the SME. I mean, Herman, if you want to go through this bit about the different groups that we want involved in the project.
So this is, of course, the needs of the nowadays projects in Europe. Europe is emphasizing strongly that you have to bring in small, medium enterprises, the users of your products and the authorities. And there was already a question on the authorities that are really the guys who have to do the decisions in the town hall and at the ministries. Try to get them involved. From each region, the best you consider that you include one of those stakeholders for the outcomes of your project. And this means that you have to really step out of your science ideas. And this was for us also, getting used to it. 20 years ago, we did not need to do so. Then we could sit in our own shell, in our own bubble. But nowadays, you have to communicate really with the public at large, with those who are going to use your ideas. So use this a mechanism that you can connect also to the wider audience.
Yeah.
So and then nowadays you have to take care. So include some authorities, include some maybe protected area managers, management of such protected areas. You need not to include the bakeries. You need not to include the hospitals, so to say. Those guys you need not to include. Those who are really relevant to a proposal, you should try to include. And another part is, and that's also there, identify the needs of stakeholders. Stakeholders you interview during the project, they need not to be partner. The partner are the researchers, are the managers, and those authorities. Those who are going to use it further, you really consult them in some workshops during your project. So keep a distinction between who is the stakeholder and who is the one who has to become a partner. The partners you directly try to get involved when you have started your ideas and to develop it into a proposal.
Yeah.
But introduce your ideas already from the beginning to them also.
Yeah. And as you see, the big field now, well, also you can bring in associate partners. So even people from outside Europe, in some countries that aren't eligible for this funding, but you want them there, and they can often bring their own funding. Emphasizing the multidisciplinarity, because this is the importance of projects now. As Herman says, probably 15, 20 years ago, we could do projects. Some of the first ones I was involved in were just on the science. They were just on the natural science. But now that's not enough there. You can bring in subcontractors, but they have to be used only for specific tasks. Say you need someone to design a website or someone to have a catalog or something, but they're not an integral part of the project there. So there. Okay. So now we're starting to build the project, and each person in it has got a particular role. the PI, the principal investigator, so they have overall control, and you need someone that they're a bit like the ringmaster in a circus. They're the one that's trying to or the conductor in an orchestra. They're the ones that's trying to bring all this bit together. They're responsible for the overall thing. They should be driving it, chairing committees, and so on. But they will need to be helped by a project administrator. No, and projects rely on a good project administrator, someone responsible for the budgeting, producing a consortium agreement, telling us how we're supposed to behave, reporting, organize meetings. Then for each work package we've got, we need a leader, and you can see there what their tasks are in managing and coordinating that work package. It's then divided into tasks, and each of those will have a leader as well, and they're responsible for that. And then everybody else is the participants. But remember, all the participants have a role as well. Then there is a set of committees, because these are getting quite big projects. So we have a steering committee, which are the partners heavily involved in it. But also, as Herman said just now, you might want a practitioner advisory board, you want a science advisory board, stakeholder panels, ones that Herman's been very much responsible for, and trying to get user inputs. Okay,
Yes.
Herman? Yep.
No, nothing to add. Yeah, yeah.
So the biggest challenge is the budgeting. You have to work out how many person months you're going to get out of this budget. So you need to know what is the average monthly cost for a partner. You need to know what are all the on costs, know what taxes and everything else those people are going to have to pay. Because you're doing a 3 or 4 or even 5-year project, you have to allow for inflation. So you have to try and build all these in. You have to decide who is eligible in your organization for getting this funding and who's not. Now, in most organizations, the administrators are paid out of the overheads. And remember, for these, there's overheads of 25%, but that may differ with different types of projects. So the administrators and your support staff are paid out of the overheads, not out of it's the ones who are doing the work that are paid out of this. The other costs, what are usually called eligible costs, the travel and subsistence, the equipment you might need, and you've got to decide, do we buy this, or if we buy it, it will depreciate over the time of the project, and therefore we have to allow for that. We might be able to hire it. We need consumables, publication fees now, because everything has to be open access, and audits and so on. And then in addition to all those costs, you then get overheads of 25%, and these are there to cover your running things. Now, as a word of warning, sometimes people put in equipment, they'll put in new computers, and very often the funder will come back and say, no, you're supposed to have computers. That's what they call a well-founded laboratory should have computers. Now, this always gives us a problem, because every grant says they're not allowed to buy computers. So in the end, you say, well, where do we get them from? And it has to come out of the overheads. So the overheads are there. In some organizations like ours, we can use the overheads for travel and staff and things like that. But if you're in the university, then very often the university takes the overheads initially, sort of thing. The bit at the bottom there about method of calculation, we shan't go into this, but there are ways of giving you the funding. One way is a lump sum, where you get paid according to a task completed, and then the other one is by person months. And then final bit, that they're subcontracting. You're not allowed unless it's only if it's an extra task or so. But this gives us the challenge. Everybody has a challenge with budgeting. Herman? Yep.
Yeah, this is of course a challenge to make it agreeable for everybody. So there will always be a little bit fight. We got some examples on this, that some of our colleagues asked, of course, directly for 1 million. They saw the budget could be 50 million, and they saw that their contribution would be worth also 1 million. So that's what you have to take care all the time from the beginning already. Make yourself an own schedule on what everybody can get and should get depending on the tasks that are assigned to the person.
Yeah.
So that's the only additional message to this.
Exactly. Yeah. Within the call, it might mention if you're producing an output, a method, approach, a piece of equipment, it will tell you what TRL, that is technology readiness levels, you should apply, you should aim for. Or even as you write it, you might indicate what TRL you're after. So the TRL low numbers there, you're developing something, it's not right for the people to use, but you're getting things working. By the time you get up to TRL6, TRL7, then you've got prototypes, and then 8s and 9s are where you've created something and it's ready to use. It's ready to outscale or upscale, and you can get it there. So even if it doesn't mention in the call what TRL you're aiming for, when you write down, we are going to produce this method or we're going to produce this technique, you should actually say we are aiming for TRL6, TRL7, or so on. Then, but
maybe to add that for, say, in science, as we are working, then it is often, as you saw also the proposal on Rowe, that we just show the scheme of those work packages. Then TRL 6 is most often the endpoint in science projects, which means that the system and the models that you're going to develop are already demonstrated as a prototype in your environment, in the relevant environment all over Europe, so that they can test it already, that you demonstrate it already. The further steps are often more and more going towards, say, already that you can make your ideas commercial. So that is more heavy. But in most projects, they will ask a TRL 6, so that what you develop has been tested and the users in the environment, your stakeholders, already have seen a demonstration of the prototype.
Yeah, that's it. So this is just an example of one of the pages that you would have to fill in the proposal. This is the one that sets down our outcomes, our outputs, the expected results, the dissemination, the exploitation, communication, and so on. Now, we're not expecting you to read all that, but it's just to show this is the actual type of information you'll put in. You'll put in how many people you will talk to. You'll put in how many papers you'll produce. You'll put in how many stakeholders you'll engage with, and so on. So this is quite an important table, and it's in this form in the proposal. And it may be that the reviewer skims over most of the others, but actually focuses on this page more than anything. So this is the sort of information that you have to bear in mind. Now, just bringing this to an end. One of the things we've emphasized is that when we do these projects, what we're doing is we're producing information for people to use. It may be for regulators or governance or whatever. And if you look on this, you might be able to see where you fit in very often as the scientist. You're going to do the work and you're going to provide information to either advisors or regulators or whatever. And what in the case of European projects, what Brussels are after is what information have we been given that helps us to do this. And by the same policies, so that's going from the scientist to the politician. They're the dark arrows. The yellow arrows they're going the other way around. Where did the ideas come from? And in many cases, the policy makers, the policy implementers will come up and say, we haven't got information on something or other. We need research to help us. They will help produce the call, and then it comes down to the scientists. So this is things going both ways. Some of you might recognize a different version of this diagram because it came from one of the ASTI summer schools last year. But one's there. And then just finishing this. How do you know that your project, when as you're doing it and when you've done it, how do you know it's successful? Well, you had a set of aims, you had a set of objectives, and then they were carried out. You carried out a set of actions. The actions led to outputs. The outputs led to outcomes. The outcomes were achieved, and that means you've achieved your vision and your aims. So it's a planning cycle that you can use for your project. This happens to be a planning cycle that we're developing for managing the marine environment, but it's the same idea. You know, what did you start off with in the project? How did you do it? What were your outputs, the tangible things, and what were the outcomes? And remember, as I said before, the outcomes may, that's may later. Okay, the last few things there. Now, the top 3 bullet points there, when I used to run an institute in the University of Hull, we had these pinned up on the coffee room wall. The only surefire way of not failing is not trying. If you're scared of failing, then don't even get out of bed in the morning. No, you do these things now. Both Herman and I, we've got fairly good strike rate of success in these, but who knows? You have to be in it to win it. If you're not in the game, of course, you're not going to win. And a motto that comes from one of our regiments. Well, the motto is "He who dares wins," but we can put in "She who dares wins." If you're having a go at this, then you'll do it. Working with like minds. We all want our science to be enjoyable. I don't want to do projects that are going to give us problems. Creating the right partnership, involving everyone while still having a good overall direction. You need the good conductor of the orchestra, and also you need a good administrator. Understand the nature of the call, the main aim, and sticking to it. Be prepared for the acting. Herman said just now, everybody wants a bigger budget than they can have. Everybody says, oh no, I need more and more money. In the end, what happens is the budget has to be split between a lot of people. So you in the end, you do what you can for the budget you've got, what we call cutting the coat according to the cloth there. If you can get any inside information, keep your ears open. Who else is creating a similar partnership? What is it that any funders are saying there? And then the bottom point there, some projects are by researchers for researchers, and we do those. They are creating more scientific information. But most nowadays, and Herman's emphasizing this, they're by researchers together with stakeholders for practitioners. So I don't know, Herman, if you've got final comments to add to this. We are
just follow those rules and then complete and submit a proposal. That's it.
Yeah, that's it there. So
yeah.
Okay.
Question.
So let's see if I stop sharing, and we have a few minutes, but it's taking a bit longer than we can. But I guess we can go on with questions for as long as you've got questions. Thanks, Gemma.
Thank you very much. That was really nice, and I'm sure it was widely appreciated, seen behind the scenes, as, for example, myself gets employed on the project, but I didn't know the behind work up until the past few months. So that's been really nice to see. So I guess we can open the floor for any questions from the group. Feel free to bob your hand up or just start speaking, that's fine. Go ahead, ma'am.
Hi, Mike and Herman, thank you very much for this very detailed instruction. But I'm a little bit confused because I'm like a third year postdoc, so which is like very beginning of my career. And also what is the project I'm working on is MotherFest. It's a really big project. Like I know I can definitely cannot start with a big project. I mean, I'm participating in it, but if I want to write a proposal for something, like to apply for some funding to do some research, I should start with something like a small, right? And
Yeah.
For the smaller research funding, the proposal and everything, how was it? Is it different or is it similar to the structure of the big project like MABIFS.
Yeah, no, you're right, Nan. That we all have to start somewhere. In writing, and so you might end up writing a proposal just for yourself, but the stage you're at is that you probably won't be able to submit it. It would need your supervisor to submit it, but you would still use the same lessons we've been talking about. You'd still be very clear. This is what I want to do. This is why I want to do it. This is how I'm going to do it, and this is what the endpoints will be. So you'll still follow those. But that doesn't stop you getting involved in these larger projects. As Gemma just mentioned, in the last couple of months, she wasn't aware of much of this, but she really has been, as we say, thrown in at the deep end in helping to write one of the projects. So she's been learning the hard way. As we say, the reward for her at the end of it is if we get the project, then her contract gets extended, which is high in her mind. But it's the same ideas, whether it's a small project or a large project. But you see, you may be in the stage of, that I said at the beginning about the speculative projects. That is, you've got an idea. Can you get it funded? But what you then have to do is write it in such a way that someone is interested in funding you. You know, people don't give. I think it's happening in most of our countries now, where the governments are saying, if you want money for your research, you have to show that your research is of value to society. It would be nice to fund blue skies research, what I call the nice to know. But in many funding sources now, they're saying, no, you've got to make it valuable. But no, the lessons that we've talked about, they go for your small project as well. But you do need if you're postdoc level, you do need your supervisor to help push you, even though you might write the whole of the project, but it would be submitted under their names or under the university's names or whatever.
Yeah, maybe to add that, say, if you would like to go for the smaller projects that you individually can do, there's a smaller chance. That's what we have to be honest of. Nowadays, it is more or less that you have to do it within the same international group or within your country. If it is a national submission, you should already also connect to some other institutes that has the highest chances. So individual proposals are difficult. There are some schemes, and that's, for example, in Europe, it is called Marie Curie. The Marie Curie system is the one that you should have to apply for, but they are at a very high level. So that's what Mike indicated. You have to show what the value is of your research, and that has to be with high standards already. So the best is, you are now here to say already together with, say, a group, the ERC, that will help you to have already some connections, and then you can go, for example, for cost actions. In cost, they have a lower level. You can follow some quite nice ideas. There are, of course, some frameworks of programs, but if you follow cost, then it is more easy to enter. And once you have such a cost system, which can be also for 5 years, for example, then you can come together often with each other in workshops, and you can develop many more projects. So the cost system is a nice one also to follow, and to submit some nice proposals. So, but to be honest, if you start with having some colleagues together already from the beginning and being international, that helps you to have a higher chance in proposals.
As an example, Nan, we had a cost action project where it didn't pay people's time. All it paid is travel and subsistence to organize workshops. It was all on connectivity amongst marine populations. So we had that for a couple of years, and then based on that, we all decided that actually we needed a Horizon call based on this. So we started writing a call. We then showed that to our national contact points. So this started about, probably a year ago now. That call is now in the draft call for 26-27 for Horizon Europe. And we've got the consortium, we're starting to write this. We know although we've got the draft call, the call will be published in January next year. It will be submitted, it will be have a deadline in April next year, and we'll start then. So this is all getting involved. It's all about networking and getting involved. We also have a saying that it's not what you know, but who you know that's important. Sometimes it's what you know as well, but actually getting involved, as you've seen with MobFS, MobFS is a huge group. I forget, Herman, how many partners it is, maybe about 30 partners or something, but it's a huge group. And by networking in there, then you can you can get involved in these.
Thank you very much, Mike and Herman, for the very useful information, and thank you, Gemma, for the slides and the links. Thank you.
Okay.
Tried to keep up and put the links into the chat to the things you were referring to.
Yep.
So I'm feeling a quite privileged position that I didn't have to ask Mike to be involved in the Horizon Europe projects and the calls, writing for calls. I wondered, from the position that you're in now, what advice you'd have towards as ECRs in approaching this, and in approaching your supervisor, and perhaps what are good ways into saying, oh, I can help with this part of the call, so to help ECRs actually access that.
Mm. Gemma's a good example, if she doesn't mind me saying this, of she doesn't know how to say no for a start, which is at her stage is a good thing. If someone asks you if you can do something, then just say yes. If it means you going away and reading up about it, then do that sort of thing. You know, if someone says, oh, no, can you do this? Now, I know there's only 24 hours in a day, and I know that Gemma sometimes doesn't have enough hours in the day, but it's as I said, you have to be involved in order to win on all this. If someone asks you to do something, I don't do much teaching now, I do bits of teaching, but over the decades, I've always said to my students that, you know, you have a look. Your main aim is to get more and more lines on your CV. Someone asks you to do something, yes, I'll do that because you'd get me down there. If when you're involved in these projects, someone is writing a paper, then it's no problem you saying, yes, I'll be involved. I'll be involved in your paper. I'd like to be involved. I might only have a minor role, but I would still like to be involved. And bit by bit, you build up the reputation. Your supervisor. I mean, I hope that, you know, where you've got supervisors, that you've all got good supervisors. You can work with them. They're involved in many of these projects. They've, as we say, they've got their ear to the ground. They know what's coming up, sort of thing. If they're not being very proactive, go and find another supervisor. But say you should be there.
In connection to that, just to inform you that most of my projects were not made based on having all these kind of nice papers that I published. I only made maybe some papers, in total now 250, but Mike even more. But that doesn't matter. The most important part is, and also that's what you have to include in your project, have the workshops, have the conferences, follow conferences, make the connections. 50% of visiting a conference is by connecting to the persons that are walking there, finding those partners that are that you have a good feeling with, that you can compose something, and that is really maybe sometimes even more than 50% of the time at the conference. Just discuss with each other, what shall we do for the future? Then you can compose a project. So you exchange the ideas. Start with those small ideas, bring them together with those partners that you like at the conference, and then develop that during 1 year. Also, do not be hasty. It will not develop in 1 week. Take several months. But as Mike indicated, the calls already 1 year before. And if you have some good connections and a communicative leader and partners, then you can find them and then you can develop them. But visit conferences, talk to people that you like, with whom you can communicate in a proper way. And then it will develop often automatically. And I started directly already, say 30 years ago, with just international projects. And that worked also quite well, just by having those discussions at conferences and working together. And not just by listening all communications at such a conference. That doesn't work. Just be selective and just do and follow your intuition. That follow your good feelings.
In both in IX now and in the institute I used to run, we've often said we have what is called a shotgun mentality. Now, if you remember a shotgun, what it does, it doesn't produce a bullet. It produces lots of little balls, little bullet, and they all go out everywhere in that. Well, if you have a shotgun approach, what that means is you try enough things and some will succeed. If you try one thing and it doesn't succeed, you'll say, oh, it's a disaster. But if you try 10 things and 5 of them succeed, then that's a winner sort of thing there. And that's very often the way we do it, sort of thing there. I say we said about the timing of this. Some of the projects that have just been submitted, we've been working on them for over a year. One of the ones, one that we kept mentioning, I think we only started writing the proposal, 2 months ago, Herman? Wasn't long ago, sort of thing.
But again,
but again, if you oh, that's true, yes, Morbefes Nan was the same. We wrote it very quickly, but we'd got a good idea what we wanted to do. So sometimes you work on these for a long time, sometimes you're very, very quick. One of the projects that we've got, Marine Sabres, that some of you involved in, with that one, it started as I'd submitted a project to the UK government and it wasn't successful. It was part of a bigger program there. It wasn't successful. So we took the project that I'd written and then we just rewrote it for a European project. And I work on the basis if it's a good idea, you'll get it funded sooner or later. You just have to keep going, sort of thing. So yeah, there are those ways. But also it's not just these very large European projects. It's smaller projects as well. You have to be on the sometimes what you have to do is you have to register for websites, especially within your country. You have to register for a website which then sends out calls. So, for example, we're registered on a Scottish website and a UK website and a Welsh website and things, and the European ones as well, aside from these. So you then have to say, if you're registered for those, they send a call out. We want someone to do this project, and then you decide whether you want to go for it. Okay. Oh, Gemma's putting more. Yeah. More quotes there.
Calls. Hope it's the right one. It's by topic, so you'll at least be able to be in the right place to explore it further.
Yeah.
Is there any other questions?
No.
I think we're all digesting.
Okay. That's right.
It was a very good presentation, and we're very grateful for you sharing this information with us. So thank you very much to both Mike and Herman. So I think that's all for today. We will share the slides following the meeting with the participants, and this recording should hopefully make its way to YouTube as well. So you should be able to go back and pick up on anything that you may have missed.
That's good.
That's all for today.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody. We'll see you around.
Thank you for listening.